YouTube? I'm Yukitsu. This is the Yukitsu Times. Welcome to my channel. This is the second episode of Getting in Shape with Yukitsu. Today I'm playing Shogun 2 Total War. It's a game that I played a lot in the past on the sort of semi-competitive multiplayer, and I got pretty good at it, but I haven't been playing it for a very long time, so I'm completely rusty at everything in it. So today I'm going to be playing a completely new general. I've decided to wipe one of my old files that I wasn't using and start from scratch. That means with a level 0 general, I've got no real retainers. I get one, and I get to pick from a very limited selection. I'm going to go ahead and select that right now. Wooden practice spears, one of the worst ones, and it's one of the starting ones. I have got some better ones that are from DLC, but just for the purpose of this, unless I end up against a high-ranking opponent, I'm just going to stick with the low-ranking starting ones. I might actually go with the light horse stud, but we'll see. That's another lousy starting one that you could go with. As you can see as well, since I'm level 0, I also have no skills for my avatar whatsoever, and those are something that come into play. And you might be thinking, it doesn't seem very fair for me that I have none of these things, whereas my opponents will. Well, my general costs $0 to compensate for that. As my general levels and gains these abilities that make my army or himself stronger, I will find my general increasing in cost up to a maximum of 1,800 koku. So it balances out a little bit, and to be honest, it's pretty nice having a 0 cost general. It means I can have a much larger army or better troops. At the start, I chose the Iwate province, which means I start with Katana Samurai. Other people could start with something like Yari Cavalry, or they could start with Yari Samurai, or they can start with Bow Samurai, depending on where they decided to start on the campaign map. Since I have Katana Samurai, I'll make sure to take some of them for my sort of core of my army. Backing them up, I'm going to use Yari Ashigaru. I'm going to start by avoiding the DLC units for a little bit. I'll use some of them later on when it doesn't feel quite as cheap to use them, but really they're not much better than the basic units. They're just sort of more kind of gimmicky almost. They're all very sort of niche units. So here I've got fairly decent army composition in my opinion. I'm considering replacing one of the, I will replace one of these with one more cavalry unit, and that makes me closer to my maximum amount of money. As you can see, these funds are set to small. That is because I'm a level 0 general. Once I hit level 3, I believe it increases to medium funds battle, which is 10,000, and at level 7, it increases again to 14,000, which is what it stays at. 14,000 koku battle sounds like a lot, but since everything is such expensive veteran units by that point in time, you won't actually have necessarily a much larger army than this. In fact, this is pretty much about the size that it's going to be. Okay, from there, I'm hitting the campaign map. This is the campaign map. I started up here. There's the Sword Dojo. To play this game in multiplayer, you simply hop around these various different provinces. When you win a battle there, you unlock the province and unlock the units or perks that are there. And again, that's one of the side benefits of gaining levels. You can even unlock these provinces if you lose. So I'm going to hit match start. I'm allowing mixed avatars, which means I can play against full of the samurai armies, which are the modern 1800s armies. I've set it to land one-on-one, so I won't be doing the sea battles and I won't be doing a siege battle, which are both things I don't want to do quite yet until I've gotten a little bit more used to playing this game again. The matchmaking in this game can take a long time sometimes, but other times it's pretty quick, so I guess we'll have to find out how long this is going to take me. You might have noticed that I built my army ahead of time, and that's because sometimes you hit this button, start, and your opponent just immediately hits ready, which gives you 1 minute to build your army. If you're not ready for that and you're just trying to rush build your army, sometimes you make mistakes, and you don't usually have something like a $10 difference between the maximum amount and your end army amount. So it's always a good idea to have a pre-made army and then adjust it once you're in the game. If your opponent's kind enough to give you some time to sort of fiddle with it, that's always good, but you shouldn't make them wait too long. Okay, this is taking a while, so I'll probably cut the video and bring it back as soon as someone is found. Okay, and we're back. As you can see, I'm against a level 9 opponent, which means he's got a significant level advantage over me. However, he also ends up with a much smaller army than I do. In this case, I believe he starts with 3,200 koku or something. The funds left there I think is usually glitched. Actually, that might be his full funds left since he isn't level 10, he's level 9. So he starts with significantly less money than I do. However, as this is a Fall of the Samurai army, I do need to slightly modify what I'm bringing with me. And since he is such a high level, I will bring a veteran unit. The reason being that when you're a higher level, you've got access to slightly more interesting units, and it's possible to just sort of stomp all over a newer player without much remorse and without much effort. So in this particular case, I'm bringing a unit of Wacko Raiders, which are fairly decent units. They're a sword unit that's sort of in between the Lone Sword Ashigaru and a Katana Samurai. In addition to that, I'm going to replace one of these guys with Fire Cavalry, and I'm going to replace Light Cavalry with I need more infantry, but I'm not overly sure what I want to take here. Probably 2 Naginata attendants, or 1 Naginata attendant and 1 sword attendant. And these guys are basically just going to be running defense for me. Okay, so things I have to worry about is he can have very, very powerful melee units, and that's a very much surprise for the more modern army. But the Shogutai infantry and the Katanakachi are very powerful. I have to watch out for those. If he's got his gun line, like a lot of modern armies can have, just massive amounts of guns, I need to make sure that he's firing at my attendants instead of my more important units. And it's also possible for them to field very powerful, very cheap modern cavalry units, which have a disadvantage of having lighter armor. I need to watch out that I catch them with my fire cavalry, my light cavalry, or my Yari Ashigaru, or even my Naginata attendants. I don't want them getting into my swordsmen. So I'm going to hit ready here. It looks like his army is also ready. And despite all of his advantages, I will have a larger army. I believe if he does go for the melee route, he can only take 3 or 4 units with him. If he decided to go for a very thick gun line, then obviously he'll have more since those are cheaper units. But at the same time, those ones are generally lower quality. Once I get my units into melee with them, they can't shoot anymore, I'll be able to easily run them down. The one that I have to worry about most is if he's got a lot of cavalry, since they're relatively inexpensive and they can be very effective, especially in the modern army compositions. So this level is a little bit strange. It's one that I like, though. It's Daisetsuzan Basin. It's got this narrow reverse choke point where you're on top of a ridge. And from that ridge you can split off to the low ground on either side where there are objectives to capture. But generally you're going to end up fighting along the high ground up top here. If you don't do that, someone could easily just surround you while you're on the low ground. It's not necessarily a great place to try to go for strategic capture. On the other hand, the middle ground is complete open killing field, which puts me at a disadvantage. So if I find that he's camping up on the higher ground, it's better for me to try and capture the objectives and lure him closer to the trees. So we'll have to see how this goes. Now, it's very possible that he took either a Shinobi Informer or has the leadership ability that grants him vision. That means that he will see where I'm deploying my units, and there it is. You can see that he has taken the Shinobi Informer. So he does know where I've placed all my units and what units I'm taking. The only exception are my Wacko Raiders, who are stealthed at the start of game since they have the Kisho ability. So I'm going to deploy my attendants into a screen in front. I'm going to take my Katana Samurai, and I'm going to put them in a straight line behind. My general in the back. My cavalry are going to be near him as a sort of guard. I'm going to have my Yari as an additional guard, and that will be hotkey 1. And matching that, I'm allowed to start off near one of the dojos with the Wacko Raiders, since, again, they're sort of skirmishers. They get to start in funny places. And you might think this is a huge advantage. It can be if used correctly, but at the same time, these guys are unsupported and far from the main line of my infantry, which means that it's very possible that they'll get sniped, or they'll be out of position. So it's very much a cost-benefit thing with them. Now, my opponent is probably going to counter my movement and counter my positioning, but there's nothing I can really do about that, since he can see what I'm doing and I cannot see what he's doing. So I'm going to hit start battle since I'm ready. That gives my opponent 1 minute to finalize his moves. You can see that he didn't quite manage to change his retainers, since he has got flogging infantry officer, which means that my line infantry would have a penalty. Here my opponent is marching his troops down towards my lone Wacko Raiders, so they are forced to back out. Looks like he's brought mostly line infantry, which works well for me. He's got Black Bears, who are very good at shooting. If he can get them in a good line, he'll be able to cause tremendous amounts of damage to me. But on the other hand, it doesn't look like he's got too diverse an army. The thing I have to look out for is that I know for a fact that these units cost 850. So he might... Well, let me just do the math there. Yeah, no, that is probably his entire army, actually. So I don't have to worry about any surprise ambushes or anything special. So in this case, all I have to do is make sure he can't kite me. So I'm going to rush my troops forward. Once he's set up in line, I'm going to have my Wacko Raiders charge in from the side and hopefully disrupt him a little bit. Now, he doesn't actually have any cavalry protection, which is a little bit peculiar, but he doesn't need it quite as much as others. His general looks like he's a modern general, so probably has guns. But more to the point, even these standard infantry have a pretty sizable bonus against cavalry, so he doesn't have to worry about direct cavalry charges as much as anyone else would. So, my opponent is going to capture this probably before I can get there. And it's a pretty decent building for me to have and for him to have. It lets him kite me very effectively by moving backwards constantly. It gives him increased move speed and stamina, and it denies that to me. On the other hand, if I had it, I could chase him much more effectively. At this point, I'm just charging all of my units down this hill. This downhill sort of charge effect is going to be a very effective way to get him. I've got my units in front screening that are very cheap and ineffective. Which way are these guys facing? Yeah, he's facing that way, so I can charge in with my Wacko Raiders. And I think I've got him in a good position here. So as you can see, he's wasting a ton of fire that immediately just destroys my Naginata attendants. Completely annihilates them in a single volley. But those guys are the cheapest units I've got, and it doesn't really matter. He's opening fire again. These ones are hitting my sword attendants. And again, it doesn't matter since they're just so cheap. He does manage to turn this unit around in time to catch my Wacko Raiders, but that's okay. And as you can see, my opponent has failed to kite in against me, and so I'm in just a very commanding position in this fight. Here, his units sort of faced around where my cavalry is not going to be able to get them solidly on the flank, so I'm going to try and get his general. In fact, I'm going to try and pin him down with my light cavalry as well. I'm just going to move in a little bit and rally my troops just in case, but it looks like I've cleaned this up very effectively. So, I think my opponent was expecting someone a little bit newer in this case. Probably got a little bit overconfident. Here I'm just going to use my fire cavalry. Oh. Try and get around. Oh, and he quit. Okay. Well, not the most educational first battle, but I think it'll be a good example for me just going through this again. I think it means that I haven't lost quite as many skills as I think I have. I still have basic fundamentals in making an army, in understanding units and tactics a little bit better than a newer player would. So hopefully I'll be able to ride that up to a higher ranking pretty quickly. Obviously, since I haven't been playing for a while and I'm on a level 0 general, I don't really have much of a ranking. But I think I'll be okay, so I think this may be a more successful looking series than my other ones, since this, again, I was pretty good at this game. Hopefully I still am. We'll find out if I can shake the rust off and be competent. So pretty soon we'll see the statistics screen, and that'll be pretty much the entire video. I'll show you some of the other features of this game, since this is the first video, specifically things like skills for my general, levels up for my veterans, and of course veteran units. So this is the score summary screen. I've gained 314 experience points from that guy, which is quite a few. You get more experience for being higher level generals, so the fact that he was level 9 and I beat him means I get an entire level, which is a little bit strange for a first battle. Now, I deployed 915 men, which is quite a lot, and I killed 352. And I know for a fact that he deployed 630 men, so that was a pretty good ratio for me. What he was probably expecting was me to just sort of run forward without any sort of coherent plan, panic when the guns were firing at him, and let my infantry break when they were getting shot a lot, which is sort of what happens with newer players. But in this case, I had an effective screen that stopped myself from taking any real casualties early on, and I had the follow-up to just break straight through his line. Here are the benefits of winning battles. They sort of petter off after you've taken over the entire map. Don't worry, the map can't be taken over from you. It's just a sort of meta game that is there to encourage you to level up and to get around. But I've gotten the province of Ugo, which is the one I selected at the start of the match. That unlocked Foot Samurai, Bow Samurai, a veteran slot from my level. And this is my first veteran unit. And it's really nice when you get a veteran Katana Samurai unit, since they can be very powerful with the correct upgrades. So I will name these guys the White Swords, without caps lock. And future units, I will change the color of their armor from white to whatever and name them by that color. Unless anybody, of course, has much better ideas for names, I'll figure that out. But for now, those are the White Swords. And this is what you get for having levels, skills tree. For now, I'm going to take 1 level in Inspire and 1 level in Enable Bow. And what this does is gives your general a basic bow at an early level, which means you get an extra shooting unit. You can keep your general in the fight without having to run him forward. Inspire is a massive boost to melee attack and range and morale, which lets you hold a linchpin unit in the right place for a little bit longer. He'll do more damage, he'll get more done. And that's just incredibly useful. Eventually, I will use clan tokens to recycle my general, which costs 3 clan points, which will wipe all of my abilities and will let me start from scratch, because I want to get rid of the bow ones and replace them with melee ones once I've got a higher level, and that actually makes a difference. And of course, I'll be probably focusing on the melee tree, but you'll see me switching back and forth depending on how many clan tokens I can get. In addition to that, of course, I can get some information for my veteran units. My Wacko Raiders gained a level, which means that I can give them an upgrade as well. And I've also, of course, got my new veteran Katana unit, which lets me upgrade them as well. Good upgrades for melee units with swords are things like melee attack, morale, and melee defense. You don't really want to go with speed, fatigue, resistance, or charge. They all cost the same amount of money, but only these 3 really dictate their performance in a fight. Charge sometimes can, but it's very hard to get the charge against an opponent that sort of knows what you're doing, because they'll absorb it with a very weak unit and then follow through with their more powerful units, and that's what I want to do as well. These are, after they've hit level 5, you can select these. They're very expensive and they're not necessarily worth it. I probably won't get very many units that have any of these. It is sometimes worth having a single unit mixed in there somewhere with scare enemies, just because the morale penalty is always there. It's a great way to break enemies faster at the center or something of that sort, where you would otherwise be fairly even. So I might get that on 1 unit, and these guys might be the ones to get it, but we'll have to find that out later. For now, I will upgrade these men's melee attack, which increases it from 12 to 14. So this unit will be more effective in melee. The Wacko Raiders, similarly, melee attack. And that will make them, again, better at killing units in melee. Now, as you can see, my general has gone up in cost from 0 to 300 koku. That's because he's now a level 1 avatar. That means he has more benefits, he's got more abilities, he's got skills. I've got a new retainer slot even. I'm going to go fill that in with the light horse stud for now. And basically all of those benefits together are worth a lot of money, so especially that bow, which makes him a very effective replacement unit for any kind of bow cavalry, because bow cavalry is typically too expensive to take. If you just give it bow on your general early on, it makes it a very effective investment. Yeah, it costs 600 for the actual full bow cavalry, and they're not all that great, really. So it's a very effective way to save money, get an extra unit that can fight, and keep your general safe while you're still contributing. Anyway, that will be the entire episode for today. I hope it was informative, and I hope you'll be back for another one. This has been Yukitsu, and have a good day.